Welcome to the Kerrville Bible Church Pastors Podcast, where we seek to further equip you for the work of ministry by discussing a variety of biblical, theological, and practical topics. Stick around until the end of the episode to learn how you can submit a question for us to answer on the podcast.
Welcome back to the Kerrville Bible Church Pastors Podcast. My name is Toby Baxley. I'm your host, joined by Scott Christensen, Chris McKnight, and Murray Van Gundy. And we're back with, did you tease this out last week, right?
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. We're talking about young Gen Z making a move back toward conservative, evangelical, biblical Christianity. And it's largely young men who are, right? That's what Mueller said. And so we want to talk about that. We'll kind of dig into it and what are we excited about? What are the pitfalls and how can we help and guide this? Because we're actually seeing it here too in our own church. So, what do you got, Murray?
Well, so who are the Gen Zers? So they were born between 1997 and 2012. So currently that would be 13 to 28-year-olds. Those are Gen Zers. And what made me think about this was last Tuesday on my way to church before last week's podcast, I was listening to the briefing by Al Mohler, which we've referenced many times in the last few months. And he does a great job of taking current culture and then looking at it through a Christian worldview, a biblical worldview, a biblical lens. So he said the day before he'd read an article in the New York Times, which is, arguably the most liberal publication we have in our country, and by a journalist named Daniel Williams. And the question or statement that Daniel Williams made was why so many Gen Zers are drawn to conservative Christianity, especially young men. And Mueller said that in this, there's this current phenomenon that he said is the first time in recorded statistical history. So think about that. First time in recorded statistical history that young male churchgoers now outpace young female churchgoers in weekly attendance. It's the first time in our recorded history. So I think all four of us in our church life would have recognized that there was a more dominance of women in churches, right? And it's like, how do we get men into church? How do we get men to lead? How do we get dads to step up? That kind of stuff. And there's been a shift, which is pretty incredible. And so the kind of part of the point of this podcast would be there is a shift happening. What do we do with it? What do we do with it as pastors, as leaders? What do we do with it in our church? What are some of the guardrails that need to be put up? What are some dangers that we need to think about and consider as this shift happening? How do we capitalize on this? What do we do? Or do we just sit idly by and see it happen and whatever? And so that's kind of what I wanted us to discuss. Mueller, in his response to this article of the why is this happening? Mueller explains through this article that young men are calling out and questioning the culture's stance on gender fluidity, sexual identity, and sexual morality. They have an instinct to lean into something deeper, something real, something that is moral truth. So there's something going on. So sent you all that little article by, it's on the Colson Center, Chuck Colson's ministry. And incidentally, this article was July 9th of 2025. So it was before the Charlie Kirk assassination that these statistics and these numbers. Mm-hmm. So even since then, it's even ramped up. Mm-hmm. So did you print it, Chris, or read it, or anybody read it?
Read it.
Okay.
That's the one you sent us.
Yeah, the one I sent,
text,
just a little page and a half
definitely.
With some statistics on it. So that this is also happening in the UK, which is kind of interesting. Happening in the UK. It says in April, the Bible Society reported that church decline in England and Wales has not only stopped. So church decline has not only stopped, but the church is growing as Gen Z leads an exciting turnaround in church attendance. This turnaround happened in a short time. In 2018, only 4% of 18 to 24-year-olds, 4% of 18 to 24-year-olds in the UK attended church regularly. By last year, that number had quadrupled.
That's incredible.
Wow. Isn't that crazy? And then among the 25 to 34-year-olds, the number has tripled.
Yeah, those kind of stats don't generally change that fast.
Yeah.
It's always more gradual, subtle, and you can look back over 10, 15, 20 years and go, oh, look what's happened. But to see those kind of quadruple, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, so
and
something's going on.
It's still very low, quadrupled up to 12%.
Up to a very low number, but still.
But definitely something happened there. And I like the point Mueller made on his podcast where he said, if New York Times is seeing this,
is reporting
there's something to it, right? And basically, it's taking them a while to even catch up, but wanting to say, okay, what is going on here? So I've got a few stats on the local level, the grassroots,
grassroots,
right here level. So right now, KBC is 45% male, and so we would definitely be in the category, and I think because of our demographic, that we are more women than men. It's 45% male, 55% women. But to go along with the trend that we're seeing, our current prospective members class is 53% men. 8 out of the 15 are men. And 5 out of the 15 are young men in this category. 33% of our current class is exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. And I would say as a percentage, it's probably the highest it's ever been in any of these classes we've done. We've all commented on it. You come and you teach the class and you observe the class, or we had the luncheon and you look around and you're like, wow, there are several young people here, young men, either couples or young families, whatever. So very exciting. And, I think we've got some discipleship things planned for some of our young men in our church starting next year, and just seeing their enthusiasm for that and their excitement for older men, Murray and I, and other elders to pour into them, and just their enthusiasm and hunger and thirst, and it's super encouraging and motivating for us who've been around this stuff for a long time, So, I think it's, we're a small church in a small town, but we are seeing something of this trend as well. It's exciting.
I had this last Sunday had a conversation with a young man that just moved here, early 20s, and basically he told me he moved here from Colorado, from Greeley, Colorado, and got a job with the hospital as an IT kind of guy, But he told me he was looking for a church that took the Bible seriously and preaches the Bible, and in the aftermath of my sermon on Sunday, he said, "I appreciate that this church does not compromise on moral clarity, and is ready to say strong things." Right. Yeah. And he remarked about had a conversation with another young man who visited our church 2 weeks ago, and he said essentially the same thing. He was asking, what is your view of the Bible here? And he was very concerned that the Bible was central to preaching and teaching in the ministry, and very similar conversations, completely different young men, right. Single, and it was very fascinating, very interesting. Rarely have I had that kind of experience. Right. Yeah.
So I've had a discussion with one of the young men in our church about a ministry to some young people in our church. I don't want us to get ahead of ourselves, because we're going to have a big announcement, not this Sunday, but the next. And having this conversation with the person we all know who I'm talking about.
So no names. We're using no names right now.
And so there'll be a big reveal to our church family at our service about this. What's that? November, whatever Sunday that is coming up, and
second, third.
So that's very exciting, and I think one of your questions was, what do we do about this? And to me, it's pour gas on it, fan the flames, and we've heard a presentation as elders of what this ministry plan is, and we've super excited about it, and you've even prayed for a young man that might get plugged into that, and so. Yeah, I think it'll be exciting for our church to hear this, and we're all just praying to see what God does with it. But it's right in line with what we're talking about, right? Yeah. of recognizing the hunger and the interest, and having something there for them. The sad thing about Kerrville often is it's a great place to raise kids, great place to grow up, and a great place to retire. And what we've seen traditionally in this town is you leave at the college age. You turn 18, 19, and you leave your home and you leave the town. Yeah. And then maybe you come back in your 30s, after you're kind of settled down and you got kids. Oh, that place that I kind of thought was boring is actually very appealing now that, I'm thinking about different ways of things. But how awesome would it be if through the church and the community, but, jobs and the church, that young people, young men, would see a reason to stay.
That's right. That's
and
what I was
not
thinking.
Go somewhere else.
Yeah, that there's actually a draw. I know your son and daughter-in-law and kids are going to be moving to Charlotte, and that's been a painful, prayerful decision they've made, right? And one of the reasons would be their church that they're involved in, right? And so this young man I talked to yesterday, leaving his college ministry that he had for 4 years within this church, and those people became his family. He goes, we would just get on our group text, hey, we're gonna go to so and so's game tonight. Who wants to go? Well, get me a ticket. You know what I mean? Just all the time, just being and so the question locally on the grassroots is like, well, are we capitalizing on that here in our little community? And can we? And is it possible? I believe so. And I think that we've got some good things in place that are going to maybe begin to roll that out. And then just on a grander scale, like to think, well, what's going on? Why'd this happen? What's going on in these young men? And I think there's, if you don't look at it too much through a political lens, although that has an aspect to it, right, is I think men and then young men have had enough of being are tired and have had enough of being told that they shouldn't be men. Yeah, it's not okay to be a man. Yeah. And I think there's just finally been we see it, right? We see it in our culture. They've just said enough's enough, and thankfully we sit in these seats of leaders of people to Christ and to the greatest mission, which is not conservatism. It's Christianity. It's the gospel. And that this is influencing them. So I think we have this great opportunity to capitalize on discipling these young people. We're not discounting women at all. We're just saying, wow, we're seeing this phenomenon, and man, we want to. You said, Chris, pour gasoline on it, man. We want to capitalize on this for the sake of the gospel, because we know just in the family dynamic alone, when there's a father who is saved, who is at home and faithful to his wife and to his family, that influences that family, influences the church, and influences the culture.
Yeah, and
right?
And future families.
And future families.
I don't know who it was that said, as go the men, so goes the church.
Right.
The church is going to rise and fall with the rise and fall of its men.
Right.
And so this can't be a bad thing with these young men kind of waking up to the lies that the culture has been just flooding them with,
bombarding them.
Toxic masculinity and all that, and are waking up to the truth. And we want to, like Chris said, fan that flame, pour gasoline on it with the truth of the gospel, and not certainly not so like a cultural or political brand of Christianity, but true biblical Christianity.
Right. And the truth of the local church.
Yeah.
I don't think you can separate the two. The truth of God's means, God's place of the local church in the life of a community and the life of these people. So I heard an example in our class. It was Sunday morning's class, and one of the young men, we were talking about how we have a corporate witness and the idea of not only do you have an individual responsibility to represent Christ in your individual witness, but corporately as a church we have a witness. And as you join a church, you need to be mindful of that. I don't want to bring shame on the name of Christ. I don't want to bring shame on Kerrville Bible Church. I don't want to bring shame on my own name, my last name, my dad's name.
That's right.
I want to honor all three of those spheres. And so we were talking about that, and this young man was talking about his interactions with some people his age who are unsaved. And, they're 18, 19, 20 years old, and all they really care about is smoking and drinking, just getting high, getting drunk, just working just enough to get by, no vision, no plan for their life, no anything. And this young man's a Christian, and he's trying to speak into that. And he told us about one particular person that he's kind of got his ear. And this other young guy's like, man, you know what? You're right. I need to grow up. I need to mature. I need some growing up. And he needs way more than he realizes.
Sure.
But it's a start.
Yeah.
It's a start to just say, like, man, I'm 20 years old, and where's my life going?
Yeah, what am I doing?
What am I doing?
And the witness of this young man, because I know who you're talking about, because he talked to me on Sunday.
Yeah.
The witness of that young man, from what I understand, he was going to he basically broke off the friendship because he's like, I can't be around you guys anymore. Right. And that guy reached out to him and said,
exactly,
man, I don't want to lose my friendship with you. And why is it that you want to be different? What is this? And so that's awesome. It's awesome.
That's manhood. That's manhood.
Right.
This guy's saying, you're pulling me down. You're pulling me into sin, and I've got to draw some lines, and I've got to, without being rude or obnoxious, but I can't hang out with you and do those things because you're and that's what it means to be a man. I mean, it's like I'm willing to sacrifice friendships for the sake of something greater, something better, something more important. And so it's exciting. I mean, it's really exciting, and just I think of it in terms of here we all are in our 40s, 50s, 60s, here at the table, and what God is entrusting to us as elders and pastors and these guys, we've talked about this before. It's like the history of our church is God just sending us older, mature, very wise, very godly saints. Very thankful for them, right? Mm-hmm. Wonderful. They're great contribution. But you think, all right, we're not going to really affect them deeply. We're not going to have a great formation in their life because they're there. They're
just affirming what they already
We're affirming. We're helping them get to the finish line, But when God sends this other generation, right, it's super energizing for us.
It's exciting,
because now we get to be part of the formative years of their Christian
And I would
life.
say this, that with that, for our listener who's listening right now or tomorrow, whatever, when this goes out.
They're listening right now.
They're listening. Okay, sorry, you're listening right now.
To you hearing, to you saying that.
That men and women, we're not discounting women, but this topic is about our young men, that men in our church, you men who Chris just described, who the older generation, you've been a part, where, being here is more just kind of affirming, is you have a role in this. This is not Murray, Scott, Chris, and Toby, or the other elder. This is you have a great opportunity. I'm telling you, every man in our church has a great opportunity, if you're 65, 75, 85, to pour into these younger men.
Yes.
To literally, you could, and I'm going to guess it's going to be, you're going to get 999 out of 1,000 yeses, older man, if you were to do this. If you were to reach out to a guy and just say, hey, I'd love to take you out to lunch. Yeah. They would say yes.
And absolutely. I mean, there are so many young men in our church that are so eager to grow in their faith that they would jump at a chance.
They would take the wisdom, right? And they want, and for the older believer, that's what you have. You have this wisdom that these younger men don't have. They need direction. Talk about your life. Talk about the decisions you made to go to college or not go to college, and to get the degree or not get the degree, and to take the career and not the career. Like, talk about your life. Talk about how Christ sustained you through that, and some of your tough, and man, this pouring into these young guys, it's fanning the flame into these young guys.
How young can they go? Can they go into the high school?
I mean,
can they dip into
definitely
your high school? Can
Definitely
they dip
high
into
school.
your territory?
100% high school. Definitely high school students.
All right.
And up. Yeah.
It's interesting. I had another conversation with another young man in our church, and he may be the same guy you guys are referring to, but we were talking on the phone at length because the
guy we're talking about, his initials are JG. So you can decide.
Chris is like, I don't know the guy's name. I mean, Scott's like, not you. Scott's like, I don't know the guy's name.
No, this guy's not that.
Okay. It's another one. It's not the same fish.
Yeah.
We're not catching the same fish.
So yeah, this guy, he had a lot of questions about my sermon on Sunday, and so we talked at length, quite a long time, about all that. But in the course of our conversation, one of the things that he said to me was that, Chris, your series of sermons on biblical manhood and womanhood have been revolutionary for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because he realized that his understanding of what it meant to be a man was not what the Bible says. Mm-hmm. And he said, Chris's sermons on these messages help expose the lies
that's good.
that I've been believing.
Oh, that's encouraging.
And so I just thought, here's another example of a young man who is just yearning to be what a biblical model of a man should be.
Be what God's made him. Yeah, you know what? We didn't give Scott a new title. You're now the associate pastor of young men.
Of young men. I love it.
So I got something on that front. I think it's okay to say this on the podcast. I think it's super exciting. So, I'm the elder over women's ministry in our church, and right now I'm currently doing the women's Bible study, and we're going through 1 Thessalonians. And the leader of that group came to me and kind of begged me to roll into the spring and do 2 Thessalonians. And I said no. And for a number of reasons, mostly because my schedule just won't fit. It just won't fit for this spring semester. And I would have to create the questions, the Bible study, the whole thing, right? And so I thought, no, I really just wanted to do 1 Thessalonians. I can't do that. But then I got to thinking, okay, I always like to, if I have to say no, I like to also be able to say yes, here's another idea. And so I presented another idea. I said, why don't you guys do a 8, 10, 12-week study on biblical womanhood and use the sermons that I just preached. There are 21 of them. Mm. And why not you ladies go back to those sermons, create your own questions for your small groups, and then instead of coming and listening to me talk, go back and watch the sermon again or listen to it again. And she ran that across the board to her little leadership team, and they all loved it.
Great.
Loved it. And they said, yeah, so now, Chris, we want you to pick the 12 most important sermons of that 21 that you think we should go back to. And I said, heck yeah, I'm all over that.
You can do that.
It's like we get more benefit of all of that study.
Yes.
And
you've already done,
causes them to listen to it and the leaders to create the questions. I don't need to create your question. You guys need to talk about what, and it feeds right into Titus 2, which is one of the sermons, right? The older women, mentoring, teaching the younger women. And so, man, I'm just super thrilled that they were on board with that, and that's basically going to be the spring Bible study for our ladies, and I think they're going to do 12 weeks. So, super exciting.
Yeah.
But back to men.
Yeah,
young men.
So we agree. We see that there is some kind of a shift happening. We all agree we need to jump on that. We need to pour gas on that. We need to be a part of it. Then the last point that we can finish with is, what are the dangers of this? What are the dangers of a shift of this? What do you want to call it? Just this male engagement, this manhood, this, what can, because I have my thoughts about the dangers of it. What are the dangers of this sort of male dominance kind of happening?
Well,
right?
Male dominance would be a danger. I
don't know what other word to call it. Like, I don't want to say
awakening or
maleness. But this insurgence of males coming into the church, they're saying, look, enough's enough. I'm tired of being told I can't be a man, right? And so they're excited. Mm-hmm. We're pointing them to Christ. Within the church, we're pointing them to Christ. They're coming into the church. We're leading them. What are some dangers just culturally, I would say? I wouldn't say within the church necessarily, but it could spill over, but culturally with this.
I was thinking about this morning in I think there's been a resurgence even after Charlie Kirk's assassination of young men waking up to the culture's lies, and as with any, if you've got a central figure who's kind of on some sort of pedestal that's got a body of teaching, which Charlie did. You've got people around them that are actually going to be more radical than they are.
Absolutely, right.
John Piper has like hyper Piperists.
Right.
Right. MacArthur had hyper MacArthurites.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so they take the teaching of that person and they magnify it to illogical ends. So anytime you've got this kind of male thing, that Charlie had going on, he was really teaching to young people, but there was a lot of men who were kind of following him. You can get kind of this hyper Kirk thing where you're going to dip into misogyny. You're going to go take that maleness and you're going to swing from over here with toxic masculinity. Well, you actually could swing into toxic masculinity if you're not careful. But when you're responding to what the culture has been feeding you, you could swing that pendulum too far to the other side. Also, we talked about this last night in our elder meeting, but there is also, if you go too far right, there's far left and far right. If you go too far right, there's an anti-Semitism that's occurring in the far right of the political number line arena. And so we want to really guard against that. We want biblical Christianity, and if you go too far on the fringe of that, then you get into some really kind of hairy issues.
So I thought of a historic example of exactly what you're talking about. It's 1930s Germany. So 1930s and 40s Germany came out of 1920s and 30s Germany, where there was oppression. So it's a similar parallel. So you've got a whole gender that have been in a sense oppressed. You can't be a man. Don't act man. Don't be masculine. All of the feminization.
Apologize for your
all that
being
stuff.
a male.
There's an oppression. So when that's recognized and you start to come out of that, the pendulum can go too far, where you pass love and you go to just strength and power.
Yeah.
Right. You just go past biblical manhood, let all that you do be done in love, and it becomes you're the stronger gender, you're the, take control, take over, whatever, which is exactly, that's the story of Hitler.
Yeah.
That's the story of Hitler personally. That's the story of Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
That came out of how that entire nation was treated on the backside of World War I.
Of being emasculated.
Oppressed, treated really unfairly probably by some of the political powers. Yeah. And so the pendulum just kept going until, now it's all about the Aryan race and fatherhood, fatherland, all that. So that's the danger. Yeah. The danger is it becomes nothing but masculinity, power, strength, control, and love is lost.
And this is serious stuff. There is a rise of kind of neo-Nazism that's connected with anti-Semitism and like hardcore patriarchy kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I just saw in the news in the last couple of days Politico, online website, that follows political news and whatnot, uncovered a chat room of GOP, young GOP men
I saw that
were, just saying horrific anti-Semitic types of statements. And one guy who's even connected to the Trump administration said, I admit I kind of lean towards some neo-Nazi, to some Nazism kind of stuff. I forget exactly how he worded it. Right. This was a private closed chat group.
Right. Racism, misogyny. There was all the boxes were checked with some.
And the other thing that now concerns me with what's happening in the wake of the Charlie Kirk death is, Mark Driscoll has been kind of promoted a little bit. And if anyone knows about Mark Driscoll,
he resurfaced?
He's resurfaced.
Resurfaced and kind of making a resurgence.
And, he made his name some years ago with this same push toward a hardcore masculine, toxic masculinity kind of thing, and got himself obviously in some serious trouble. He was quiet for a few years, but slowly he has been working himself back into places of leadership, and TPUSA, unfortunately, has begun to platform him. Yep. And it's very disturbing because he should in no way be be
He's a great illustration of the
going
danger,
too far.
The danger you're talking about.
Yep.
And it becomes disrespectful, unloving. That's why
male chauvinism, misogyny, all that stuff.
So I tried to bounce back and forth in the series, and just have emphasis each way, because to me it's an issue of balance. What you were describing is you just get out of balance biblically, one way or the other. And so we've seen a whole culture egalitarian and feminism and effeminate men and soft and tender and gentle, and it's just gone so. The dangers we don't hit a balance.
Yeah, the dam bursts, right? The dam bursts, but then how do we not create a whole nother one on the other side?
Chris, that whole statement you said just reminds me of the devotional you did last night with the elders from 1 Thessalonians 2, and talking about how there is aspects of pastoral leadership that are like being a mother,
right?
Whereas there are other aspects of it that are like being a father, and Paul talks about both those and
back to back, right there, same passage. Yep.
Yeah,
tender,
really good.
tender like
that's something.
Mother, exhorting like a father.
That's something good that we need to remember when we're having these conversations with these young men, right? You have young men who are prone to that anyway, right? Prone to this tough masculinity, and so we need to really minister to them in that, and then we have men that probably need to step up and be more manly, right? Be leaders, and so be sensitive to that. But a perfect balance, and that's what you said last night, Chris, and you referenced Scott, is what a great analogy of the two, right? Of how do we balance that, and it's all in love,
Sequential expository preaching will take care of the balance.
Do that.
Right.
Back to that
true.
podcast.
So, we're also back to one-on-one discipleship in taking these young men and spending time with them and learning what is it that you're into, what are you believing, and being able to speak personally into that.
The absolute truth.
Because they may not always catch that from a sermon.
Oh, for sure.
But
it's going to be in a relationship
down at lunch.
Yeah, for sure.
You can have an opportunity to speak into that.
Right, for sure. I think another danger might be, a young man catching this vision and deciding, man, I want to get married at 16 or 17 years old. That I think a danger could be that they get out over their skis a little bit. Yeah. And they're not as mature as they think they are. Right. And they've discovered doctrines of grace, and
for sure. They're hyper Calvinists.
And they're just like a little, and so they need some seasoning. And maybe I think a danger could be, even though we are advocates for early marriage, that it's actually too early. By a year, 2, 3, and so just the context of seasoning and maturing within their family dynamic, with their fathers, within the church dynamic, again, back to relationship, because when you're preaching, you don't know what people are thinking. You don't know what they're believing, and it's those conversations where oh, wow, you really believe
that?
You
actually believe that.
Well, we got to talk. You see these young men that are discovering the faith, they're discovering the truths of Christianity, they're discovering the doctrines of grace, and there's just this zeal that they get filled with, and we've seen it in our own church with young men, and that zeal needs to be tempered, and I think that's part of the discipleship process.
We definitely don't want to squash the zeal,
that's right.
But we want to bring the knowledge up to match.
Right.
Don't throw a bucket of water on it.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's because I have a certain kind of personality, so that's super exciting, and then you're like, okay, you got to be careful. What did you just do? Hey, you can't go tell your parents what we just said.
I think of that.
You're still under 18. You can't say what.
I think of that in terms of a fire, like a barbecue pit, where if you want to bring the temperature up, you use a really old dry piece of wood. But if you want to get a long burn, you put one that's maybe not as seasoned, it's a little bit, maybe got greener, a little bit more green, more sap, and it's gonna burn, but not as hot, and it's going to burn longer. And so that's what we're talking about. This zeal they have is that dry wood that's just blazing hot, but it can also go out real fast.
Yeah.
So we want to bring that knowledge up by putting a green piece of wood on there. That's the knowledge of the word and good biblical doctrine.
How does the damper play into this illustration? The air.
Every once in a while, you got to let the air in, man. Every once in a while, you're like, okay, guys, let's go skydiving.
Chris has actually changed the subject on us real quick. He's actually looking for barbecue tips.
Yeah, he actually is. Yeah, from you. He just did his first pork.
He's being overly literalistic.
Let's talk about this a little deeper.
The barbecue guys, they run their damper full open.
Okay.
And they affect the heat by the size of the splits that they put.
Ooh, okay.
So if you need a little bump, you put a smaller piece of wood in there.
Okay. A little bump.
So
interesting.
Wow. Kim, you're welcome for that.
We gotta let some oxygen into this discussion
for sure.
All right.
Well, I guess that's it.
That was a short one. It was a shorter one, but I think
are we at? 41?
35 minutes.
Oh.
Yeah, very good.
36 minutes.
We do have breaking news. Tropical storm Melissa forms in the Caribbean.
All right.
So just
breaking news.
Just letting you know, Toby.
That is.
Chris, the weather man. I mean, that guy, he tracks the weather.
He hasn't prayed. When he prays for rain, it comes. So I think, I think he looks at the weather. He knows Wednesday, Thursday is coming. Wednesday, Thursday, I saw there could be some rain coming. You need to pray, man.
I'm praying that God would get us to our 30 inches.
Yeah.
We're at 24. Yeah. It's going to take a lot.
And not all in one day.
Yeah, you want to know what's amazing? So on this subject for just a moment. So we had our flood, July 4th, 5th. The actual official rain gauge for the city of Kerrville, 2 inches on July 4th.
Wow.
2 inches on July 5th. That's it.
Oh, wow.
That's the official rain gauge. It's over at the place right by Cecil Atkinson. That's where they do it. Isn't that astounding?
Huh.
Yeah.
2 inches where there were places that got
12.
12 and 13 in 4 hours.
Yep.
And city of Kerrville too. So there's this deception. Oh wow, drouught's over. Well, yeah. I mean, it went a long way, but wow, we're back in it big time.
Yeah.
So that's another subject.
That was free. That was a freebie. We might split that off as a bonus episode.
Just open the damper all the way.
Right. Chris, do you have a topic for next week? You have any
Are you
kind
kidding
of thing
me right now?
You want to tease anything for next week?
No.
Okay.
All right.
Murray,
pray. Let me pray. Yeah, Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for your gospel. Thank you that you created us male and female. And thank you that you've given us roles. Thank you that you equip us through your word and through your church. And we pray, Lord, for a good balance of these young men in particular who are having this zeal. We pray for a good balance of them accompanying that with knowledge of your gospel, knowledge of your word, the life of Christ, his ministry, the gospels. Lord, so help us to be discerning and to not miss opportunities to speak into these young men's lives and other people and listen to this podcast. Would they have a burden? Would you put a burden on their heart to speak into these young men as well? In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thanks for listening to the Kerrville Bible Church Pastors Podcast. We want to be a resource for you and answer the questions that are on your mind. Please send them to us via email at questions@kerrvillebiblechurch.org or call or text us at 830-321-0349.